Hello and welcome to my tutorial video about my blog post and my last script about preparing an Intune environment in a hybrid infrastructure. I have wrote a script about preparing tasks which should make us the life in the IT easier to prepare some hybrid infrastructure with Microsoft Intune. For this I wrote the script and I would like with this video to explain how this script is working. Before we start, we have to make some preparation work. The script itself can be simply run. Nothing has to be modified on the script. You simply hit the script in your command line in PowerShell and you can start it. However, we still have to prepare some few things which we're going to be asked during the script. What we need is the domain name where the on-premise Active Directory is going. We need the OU path for our users, where our users are stored. We need the path where our MDM managed devices will be located. We need a path for license groups, and we need a path for Intune management groups. The management groups I personally like to use to manage applications on Intune, how the permission for them should be. What we also need is as a variable our own Microsoft address, in this case contoso.com, and our tenant ID. I highly recommend to prepare these points before you start with the script. This environment I'm just sharing with you is a lab environment. So that means I have built a domain controller with the 2019 server, and I have a test tenant created where I'm using for my video and which I was using for testing and developing my script. So I hope this is gonna help you. And before we start, we're gonna have some few more looks. The first, what we're gonna do now, we're gonna have a look on the tenant, and we go to our admin center. During the script, there will be created two users. One user will be created on-premise and one user will be created online. The on-premise users which we're going to create during the script is a testing user where we can test if our global or finished endpoint or Intune deployment is working. And what we're also going to do online, that will be an SVC user which we're going to have promoted as an Intune administrator. Both users will start with the three-letter SVC, and as we see here on the tenant side, there doesn't exist any like this. The next thing we're gonna have a look on is in Microsoft Azure Active Directory. We look at the groups we have, and as we see, that's these groups which exist currently in this tenant, which were created as a demo lab, and no one of this is gonna be used. We're going to see later several new groups. The next thing I would like to show is how my Active Directory on-premise is prepared. I'm having here two organizational units, the MDM, where our Intune groups, management groups will be stored, and our license groups will be stored. Here, as you see, they're also empty. In the MSB 365 lab, we have the lab devices, which is also empty, and we have the lab users, which has one user inside. This user is not necessary or not important for the things we're gonna do today in this video. The rest is empty. The next look we're gonna have is in our group policy management. As you see, we have still these organizational units with these sub-units, but they're total empty. From the group policy objects, we have only the default domain controller policy and the default domain controller policy. Default domain policy, pardon. This is what it is. During the script, we're gonna connect, or the script gonna connect to GitHub and gonna download a second shortly script, which you also can find in the end of my blog article at my blog. What this is doing. This script will be downloaded, as I said, from GitHub, and in the end of the day it's gonna be stored on the netlogon directory on your domain controller. That's why I'm also running this script on the domain controller. As I also said earlier, we have some few variables which we have to fill in during the script. For speeding up all this, I have modified my script a bit that these variables all are already set by default. So I will not have to make these entries during this video now. They will be already set. You're gonna see this quite in the beginning of the script. But anyway, I will still have to do some settings during the script, and I'm happy and pleasure to show you how this works. Let's start with the script. If we go to the script, if you download it, just take it on a directory where you can browse from it. In my case, it's the cmdm directory, and I just hit enter now. And then the script starts by itself. We have some few informations, and as you see, the first here should be the variables. When all the variables are set, we're gonna know this. And now in the first step, you see a user will be created. This user will be named svc_dw_user, and we need now to create a password for this user. So let's do that. After I initiated my password, I hit enter, and the user account got created. In the next point, the license groups get created. Then the management groups get created. In the next point, it goes there to create a subfolder or a subdirectory. Here we're gonna download now from GitHub this subscript, which I already mentioned earlier. There will be downloaded a PS1 and a bat file. Now we are creating the group policies which we need with the entry, and then in the end we're gonna link the value filled GPOs. After this is done, the script goes there and hits the AD sync. The script goes also there and checks if the AD sync is already from AD Connect is already installed on this server we are running the script. If not, you're gonna skip it. If yes, you're gonna use it. I have added a break from 30 till 40 seconds that the sync has enough time to be created. So let's wait for a moment. Good. Now we are connecting to our Microsoft 365 PowerShell model. For this, we need to enter here the needed credentials. Now, SVC DW admin user gonna be created. For this, we also have to enter a password. As we see, the user got created, and now the user gets up-leveled to an Intune administrator. The next step is we're gonna go and connect to our Azure Active Directory. And again, we have to hit here our credentials. And in the next case, we are creating dynamic groups in Azure Active Directory for Intunes. The dynamics groups I'm creating here, they are device groups. So if we join devices to our Intune environment, there are maybe Lenovo devices where we have to deploy some tools which are just for Lenovo, the same for HP or Dell or Microsoft. So in this case, this group's gonna be created now. It always takes a bit of time. This video is not speeded up, so it's everything in real time that you see how long it takes to make all these configurations. Good. In the next point, we're going to load the licensing module from Microsoft Azure. In this case, if we have already some Microsoft 365 licenses in our environment, in our tenant, this part goes and merges or assigns the licenses to these license groups. So here we hit again the login, and now he figures out which licenses we have, and the one we have gonna be linked to the right groups. And now we see all preparing tasks are done. Let's now have a look what that means, what it has done. First, let's have a look on the net logon file, which was empty earlier. As we see, we have here a bat file and we have here a PS1 file. This bat file will be used by one GPO for the user context to start this PowerShell file. Since with GPOs, by creating them with PowerShell, you cannot use ADMX templates, we had to create all the registry tasks by our own. So in this case, this bat file starts the create schedule task PS1, which goes and checks if a particular schedule task exists, and if it exists, this script does nothing. If not, this schedule task will be created. And this schedule task is one of the points which are needed that a hybrid joint device can be MDM enrolled. This is what's gonna happen here. In the next point, we go to our Active Directory. If we go now back to MDM, hit the resync button and go to Intune groups, we see if we have created some few groups. This can always be added or manipulated how you want. This is like how I work with. We have like taken Intune, then if it's about mobile or if it's about productivity. And here, as I told you earlier in the example, if we have, for example, deployed my Acrobat Reader, and this shouldn't be available for all users, we can just use this user group to add the users there. The same we have about Citrix. We have some settings which are base. That's why we have a base group. We have the KFM for OneDrive. We have some update ring and. This can be modified in the script. If you need other groups, other namings, or more or less, you can simply do it. Feel free. If you go to the license groups, here we have created a few of them. You have the ATP plan P1, which will be not existing for a long time left. We have EMS, we have Microsoft Business Premium Base, M365 E3, E3 without Exchange Online, E5, and so on. We also already prepared a bunch of Windows 365 licenses. Okay, if we go to the lab devices, hit refresh, we have created three groups of three organizational units for the device deployment. One should be for hybrid, for autopilot domain join, one for Intune enrolled devices, and one for Intune unmanaged. So that means if you have computers in the Active Directory and your Intune is configured as well and you have run this script, you simply move your devices to this group and all the rest will be done automatically. How this looks on the GPO level. If we go to the group policies as well, we go back to the domain, hit actualizate, and as we see by the group policy objects, we have several new group policies. If we have a closer look, we see on lab devices, the three organizational units we saw earlier, and we see that the GPOs are already linked. And if we have a shorter look or a closer look to it, let's take this as an example. We see here also the settings which are done. So we have the tenant ID, which is set in the GPO, and we have the tenant name, which is also set in the GPO. So this is working well. The next step, what you're also gonna have a look on it, is about our tenant. As you remember, I will maximize this. We have just these few groups which were already earlier here. If I hit the refresh button, we have all our license groups which were created on-premise also synced to the cloud. Please note, you have to configure your Azure AD sync which directories should be synced to the cloud and which not. This topic will not be placed here in this video or in this blog post. This is just the preparation which has to be done that this is working. We also have our Intune groups, for example Intune Mobile, and as we see we have our dynamic group. If we have a look, for example, here for Lenovo, we hit in, and we know this will be all about the dynamic rules which we have created. Another point which is also good to know, in this tenant as an example, I have business premium licenses. So Microsoft 365 business premium licenses. That means if I go here to Microsoft to license Microsoft 365 business premium base, if I click on this, pardon for that, if I click on this, if I go to licenses, the licenses should be already, pardon, I took the wrong one. Sorry for that. If I go to business premium licenses, we see the Microsoft 365 business premium licenses are already assigned to this group. So if we go back to the on-premise Active Directory, we can add the users to this group, start the sync, or wait till the next sync comes and the user will be deployed with the license. Let's have a look on our active users on Microsoft 365. As you remember, we had no user which starts with SVC. If I hit here, enter again, you're gonna see two accounts. Let's start by the SVC DV user. This user was created earlier on the on-premise infrastructure, and you see it has the name like this and the on-premise domain name, or the real domain name, which I'm using now for this example. The other user has almost a similar name but is an admin user, and I mostly use the on Microsoft address for Intune admin users, so that's why the username here is different. If we have a closer look on this user, we also see that this user has the role of an Intune administrator. The next step, after the script, after this video, of course, you have to prepare your Intune environment. You have to set baseline policies if you need them. You have to prepare the packages and make your settings. But I think as a first run, this is something which helps us a lot. I hope it will be something for you too to use. Feel free to use. You can share the script, you can modify the script however you want. I just hope it's gonna help you a bit during the day, and thank you for watching, and I hope to see you around.